Hey, it's Carly.
Hey, it's Shamina. And
And we're
Emotion.
full.
Yay! We have a super special guest today, but before we introduce them, we want to thank our patrons from Patreon, Therese Gallagher, Kevin Gallagher, and Joanne Stewart for your continued support throughout our podcast journey. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Today, we will be talking about the transition from corporate America to owning a small business and the beauty industry and all things in between. So, without further ado, please allow me to introduce our guest. So, this is in her language, not mine. So, here we go. My name is Sabrina Aguilar, and I'm a licensed esthetician specializing in skincare, lashes, and brows. I went completely on my own right in the middle of the pandemic last year in May of 2020. My aesthetics business is called FaceTime Beauty by Sabrina, and I have poured my heart and soul into my small business. I decided to go for aesthetics after being, I hope I'm saying that right, after being in the insurance industry for over 10 years. Once I was in school, I fell in love with the chemistry of changing people's skin, and I never looked back. I am full-time on my own, and I'm lucky enough to be able to have a completely full schedule. She is booked out through the end of the year, people. That's how full she is, and it's October. So let us bring her
Drum roll.
Let's get
Emotionful.
Yeah. All right. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. We have never met, but welcome. Hi.
Sabrina, this is Carly.
I feel like I know you.
I do follow you on Instagram. I do check it out. I was telling Shamina, I was like, I want to book with her. And then Shamina was like, yeah, that's not going to happen until, and I was like, okay.
I'll squeeze you in, girl. Don't worry.
Thank you. I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up after this show, girl.
I will. I totally will. I promise. As a thank you for having me.
I'll
absolutely get you in there for sure.
Well, we
so
are thankful to have you.
Yes. We are super excited. So I wanted to bring, obviously, I've been getting facials from you for, I want to say since like 2019. It was like the end of 2019. So like 2 years now. I fell off in like 2020 just because of the pandemic and everything. And I was like, but I've been starting back again.
You were being safe. I wouldn't have gotten facials at that time, honestly. But yeah. So for about 2 years you've been getting facials from me.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of bring you on because I think your journey is very important to kind of talk about. You were in like the corporate insurance world for 10 years and then decided like I'm going to switch my whole life around, which is also something Carly's talked about a lot in the podcast. So I really wanted to kind of we wanted to hear more about like your journey and how you kind of got to that place of deciding like I'm not doing insurance anymore and I'm going into the skincare business.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm so glad to be here. This is like my second podcast I've done before. So I'm like so nervous, but I love doing stuff like this. So, so that's exactly like you said. I was in the insurance world for 10 years or so. And it was super, I've always worked in like office jobs, like even throughout when I was in college, I always worked in an office and I kind of like thrived in that environment. I feel like just like with typing, like I was always just good in an office. And so I even like dropped out of college after a couple years and I was working full time and going to school. So I was like, I'm making enough money. Like I can do this, So I quit going to school and then I went and got my insurance licenses. And I started working for State Farm after a couple years and it was just super stable. It was like I was making good money and I had great coworkers. If you work for like a good agency, you know, it was just, I never thought I would leave that, honestly. And then once I turned 28, I used to go in the tanning beds a lot, like back in the day, you know, we like to be tan and have like no eyebrows. Yeah. So I used to go in the tanning beds a ton, you know, when I was young. And so once I didn't see that sun damage until like doesn't surface for years. So once I got like 28, I was like, why does my skin look so, it just doesn't look like it used to. It doesn't look as beautiful as it once did. So I, at that point, I kind of decided, I was always in makeup and stuff like that, but I decided, I was like, let me just kind of go to school. I started like researching different schools. And that's when I went to school. I was doing night school. So I was still working full time doing insurance. And then I was doing night school a couple of days a week. And I just totally it was so fun. I loved school so much, and we just giving each other facials all the time. And it was awesome. And literally once I graduated, it took 6 months for me to graduate skincare school. And that was it. I quit my job like right after that. And it was super scary at the time. I was so nervous, you know, you're just like so unsure. I knew I wasn't going to go on my own right away, which going on your own is the best when you're an esthetician, because that's where you're really going to make, you know, a lot of money and really like be able to just do everything your way. But I knew that wasn't going to happen right away. And so just going from like making really good salary and it just being steady, I was so scared to go and it was hard. I made a lot less money the first year, a lot. And so it would just cause like turmoil between like my relationship. It was just a lot of like stress in the beginning. And then I don't know, like once you work for a few different people, I started working for a couple different spas and working for a couple different doctors and med spas, and you find out what you like. And then 2020 hit, and I was like not really working full time. I was working a couple days a week in my own suite, but it was like I was sharing my sister's suite. She does hair. So I was kind of just sharing a suite with her a couple days a week. And then I was also working at like a Hand and Stone, like a franchise, and doing facials and stuff like that there. So that was fun. And then 2020 hit, and I literally actually before the pandemic hit, let me go back a little bit. Before the pandemic hit, I decided I was going to go on my own full time. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to get my own suite, even though it's scary and it's a lot of rent. I was like, I think I can do it. I had built up enough clientele after like the year and a half. So I gave my 2 weeks notice to my boss at Hand and Stone. And I got my own suite. And then that's when March of 2020 happened. And so then everything shut down. So for 6 weeks, nobody worked. So my business was shut down. So we didn't work. And then once everything reopened in May of 2020, I went completely on my own. And it has been like, it's been thriving and nonstop. So I'm just super, I don't know what I did, honestly. Like, it's like beauty industry did not stop. It did, like, people did not care. I mean, I think it was a little bit, at first people were scared to start getting services like lashes and skincare done, but I think people just missed self-care, honestly, and just having like, it's also like a form of therapy, to be honest. Like even just getting a facial or getting your lashes, just feeling good about yourself and feeling like pampered and taken care of and like you look good. It means a lot to people. So even during COVID, I think people were just like, screw it. So now, like Shamina said, it's, a year later, a little over a year later, and my business is booked through the end of the year. And I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I'm very thankful. Look at your dog, how beautiful.
Likes to make her way into almost every episode.
I noticed. I love it so much. Blue's so cute. But no, so that was it. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm just, like you said, it's super scary to like jump in and do that on your own. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I had coworkers to like push me and be like, you can do it. You can do it. Cause it's so hard to believe in yourself, when it comes to stuff like that. I think it's easy to encourage other people to do that stuff. And but when it comes to doing it on your own, you just doubt yourself a lot. So I'm so glad that I did it.
Definitely.
I think it's so awesome. Personally, I've actually never had a facial, but I know I'm
Like,
mad at my
know, right?
Right.
I
I'm like,
know.
I hear that all the time.
But I will say, like, you made that about, like, you know, I really think that, like, when COVID hit and stuff, like, it was almost like the self-care was like their outlet, because we were starting to realize, like, we can't go out and do stuff in public like we used to. Like, what else can we do to, like, treat ourselves? Because I know personally for me, like, I've always been into self-care, but I started, like, really researching it, and I started, like, buying products. And, like, one, I just want to mention, your skin is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Can you help me? No.
Yes.
But I totally agree. And, like, with the Florida sun, like, I'm realizing, like, first off, sunscreen is so crucial, but, like, how you said, you realized, like, when you were in high school and stuff, you wanted to be in the tanning beds and all of that. But I think it's really awesome. I think what you do is great. And it really is a way for people to feel better about themselves if they're not able to do therapy or other things, or maybe they're just too scared to do therapy. And so, you know, there's that stigma behind therapy. So sometimes people find outlets other ways, where they're exercising or self-care or.
So true. It's so true. That's so true. Yeah. I mean, it is like, I mean, and Shamina knows, like, I don't shut up. I'm like, I'm like you, I talk a lot. Like,
I told her, I was like, you guys are going to get along great.
Yeah, I knew it right away. I was like, oh, she's like me. She's loud, talks a lot, you know. But no, my sister's like, God, you never shut up. How do people enjoy their facials? I'm like, I know. I'm like, I know. Especially when I get into skincare, you know, especially if they ask me a question about, like, you know, oh, what can I do? Or like, and then I just go off on a tangent and stuff. But you know, Shamina, I love, because you get certain clients that, like, they ask you questions, but it's like when she'll be like, well, how are you though? Like, how's life with you? Like, and I never get that question, you know, like, or I do maybe, but not like that. Like, I could tell she actually means it, you know, it's not like, oh, how are you? You know, so I love.
She brings that therapy with her everywhere. But it's funny because Shamina's probably like your sister to me. She'll be like, Carly, I didn't get to say anything. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, I didn't really notice. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. My bad.
No, you guys feed off each other so good. I feel you guys do so well. I meant to say that to you too. You guys do, like, I think because opposites attract, you know, like, even in, like, in every relationship, I feel like kind of opposites attract or mesh well together. So you guys are really good at balancing.
I was gonna say, she balances me, she humbles me. She's like, Carly, it's not all you. I'm like, okay, let me sit back down off this throne that I had made for myself. Thank you.
I know. Yeah, like, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
That's awesome though. Yeah. I could see you and Shamina really enjoying, both Shamina on her end and your end, enjoying those facials. So yeah. Shamina really hypes you up. I will say, like, she always talks about you, and she told me how she bought that one sunscreen from you, and I almost reached out to you to buy it. But
no, I'll send you some. Don't you worry. I'll send you some.
Yes.
Dress for you guys. I'll send you some products for both of you guys. So that.
Wow. Okay. Just let us know whenever you want to be on this show, because done deal. You are here whenever.
It's true. No, she's right though. The sunscreen that I sell, it like flies off my shelves. I can't order it fast enough, and it's the best. But sunscreen is the best thing too. So no, I'll send you guys some. I'll send you some stuff for sure.
And we shall send you stuff as well.
Exactly.
So I do. Were you gonna ask a question?
You go.
Okay, so I don't know if you had mentioned it. So if you did, I apologize. But I know you said you did well in the corporate life, and you did well with writing. My God, writing. What was it that you were like, you know what, I want to explore and branch out? And I know you said when you turned 28, like your skin, but is that really like what just did it for you?
That's a good question. No, I mean, like I said, I had a really good, so you know how, like, when you meet certain coworkers, they like change your life. Like, there's just certain people that you're like, oh man, I'm gonna like, that person's gonna be in my life forever. So I had a coworker like that. Her name's Christy, and she was like basically one of my supervisors at my office. And she's only 2 years older than me, so she's about 35 right now. So she was almost like, but she was really tough on me. And I looked at her, like I looked up to her so much, like I just like professionally and just like everything. I just was a good friend. So I became really close with her. And then her husband ended up opening up his own agency, and she left. And that was like kind of like devastating for me. And she went and opened up her own boutique. And she was like, you know what? I'm gonna open my own clothing boutique. Like, and that's what I want to do. I'm gonna sell really quality, like beautiful pieces. Like, cause that's what was like cool, important to her. Whereas like me, I'm like, I'll just buy whatever at Forever 21. Like, I don't care. But like, that was something that was important to her, is like concise, like very quality pieces, something that just like she had, you know, was important and cool to her. So she opened up this boutique in Dunedin, and she just like, and I think I was just kind of like, wow, like, and like I said, I always looked up to her. I think it was very cool and like just brave of her to do it. So once she left, I kind of felt like just a little bit like this emptiness, like I don't know, I just felt sad without her. And so I ended up getting a new coworker to replace her, and she is my mom, close to my mom's age. And so she became like a mother to me too. And she was the one who really, like when I told her, I was like, you know, I think I want to go to school for skincare. Like, I don't know, I'm just so she was the one who was like, it's so weird how like one left and then the other one came, now that I'm like talking about this. But she was the one who was like, you have to do it. You have to do it, Sabrina. Like you have to do it. She was like, if you don't, you're gonna like look back at this and think like, she's like, trust me, if I were you, she's like, look at how old I am now, and I'm gonna retire doing this. Like, and I started when I was your age. And so she's like, if I were you, I wish I would have done something like that and gone to school for like something that I was passionate about, and just do it. And so she was really the kind of the one that, like my mom, I feel like kind of gave me the kick in the butt that I needed. And so I think that if it wasn't for those two like significant people at my job, like I don't think I honestly I ever would have done it. I think maybe I would have like always been into makeup and maybe done something like that on the side, but yeah, I don't think I ever would have been. It's all about who's around you sometimes, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that it's awesome that you had someone to push you and then you went through it and you did it. Now, you said you have like your own studio. How long? So I know you said it was right before the pandemic that you decided. So was it like literally at the pandemic, or was it like, did you have any clients, I guess is my question, before COVID hit?
Yes. I had a good book. I will say from the very beginning, like from the very first esthetician job that I had right in Clearwater, I will say I have clients from there, like from the very beginning, right from 2018 when I first graduated. I have those same, just like how Shamina's been following me from when I was sharing a suite with my sister. Like, I'm so lucky that the people that I met have just followed me, like just wherever I go. They're like, I don't care where you go, like I'm following you. And and word of mouth is the best like thing. I did have a good clientele, not as big as I have now. Now it's almost to the point where I'm like, I can't take any new people. Like, and I never ever thought I would look at estheticians and stuff like that on Instagram, and I'd be like, they can't take new people. Like, I can't even imagine what that's like. Like, I can't even fathom that. And now it's to the point where I'm almost like, okay, I just have to keep my existing, except for you, Carly, don't you worry, I'll get you in.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm like, Shamina has thrived about you. I've never had a facial. I was like, yes, like
no, I got you.
Where are you located?
I'm right in Palm Harbor. So okay. I don't know where you live exactly, but I'm in Palm Harbor because I know Shamina, she kind of travels a little bit to me.
Mm-hmm. I travel, this is a dedication of her clients. I travel across 2 different counties for my appointments with her. And I love it.
I know. I had somebody last week that their appointment was scheduled like months ago, and she's a regular of mine. And I was like, oh, hey, how are you? And she was like, well, actually, I'm on vacation this week and I forgot about my facial. So I drove here from Orlando, and I was like, oh my God, you kept she's like, well, I know how crazy your schedule is. So I just figured, I'm like, That's dedication.
Some loyalty right there.
That is. I feel like that alone just shows that, you know, obviously your facials are good, but it really matters of how you interact with your people, because you could offer the best services, but if you're nasty or like you don't make me like, you know, sometimes when you go and they don't even talk to you and it's like, okay, like you did good, but like I don't feel any connection, you know, like this isn't gonna be a match for me. You know, like that matters.
You guys know that so much, you know, it's like, it's so much about your energy. And even if somebody's just, and like I'm super bubbly, I'm very outgoing. So I think people like that. I think a lot of people like gravitate towards that, or if they're uncomfortable, especially like you said, people who've never had a facial. I think once they're around me for a little bit, they realize like, okay, I don't have to be like super nervous anymore. Like she's cool, she's chill. But yeah, word of mouth definitely is my, like Instagram is great. And I will say that's probably what helped me like in the beginning. That's how people found me, is like Instagram and stuff like that. And social media. I've had a couple, I've had like beauty bloggers come see me and stuff like that. But honestly, word of mouth. Like I kind of stopped posting and haven't really been posting as much ever since I'm too busy. Honestly, my schedule's crazy. So I don't post as much, but the business still keeps coming. Like I still get a lot of new people that try to reach out. And I think it's just word of mouth, honestly. It's just word of mouth. And I think people really, like you said, I think people know if you are really interested in what you do. Like if you really care about what skincare, they see that and they know that.
Absolutely. I know Shamina had asked a question, so I don't want to keep asking questions, but I'm a very curious person. So Shamina, do you want to ask your question before I go in?
I have two, so I'm trying to decide which one is going to take this direction in a totally different way. One is kind of like on the same topic. So I guess I'll go with the first one that will, or the four. I don't know. Anyway, I want to kind of know like your emotional experience that you went through, obviously like coming from corporate world, insurance world, and then deciding like, this is what I want to do for me. And now you're kind of thriving as a small business owner. So how has that changed your sense of like fulfillment in your life, or just even kind of your emotional experience when you go to work every day?
That's such a good question. That's such a therapist question. I love it.
I know, right?
That. Honestly, that's so hard to I know I don't get asked questions like that a lot, so it's hard to like tackle that. There's no greater feeling. I say this a lot, like there's no greater feeling than being your own boss. Like just being in control of your own schedule and being in your own, like just making it's all your money. Like it's your baby, you know, this is my business, is my baby. And that is the most one of the most rewarding things about it. And you know, with going to like the 9 to 5, it's funny because sometimes my job is so like right now, I love my job so much and I never feel like I'm working, right? Like when I'm at work, I don't feel like it's work, but it is. And then when I get off of work, I'm still working. So, cause I still have to like answer calls and I still am like thinking about things. Like I never stop thinking about work and stuff. Whereas like with my 9 to 5, even though it was like monotonous and, you know, it was like steady and I didn't have to think about it when I left work. Like I made really good money and I got to come home and my emotions weren't a part of it. So that was like the easy part of it for me. So that was like the nice, comfortable part. I think I just felt really safe, you know, being in insurance. And I just felt like this is stable and I'm comfortable and I'm good. And with insurance, like with going into the skincare, the emotions, like I said in the beginning, were not like they are now. It was hard because I went from making like really good money and being able to support myself. And, you know, I wasn't engaged at that time. So I'm in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, if I fail, how I'm not gonna be able to, like, how am I gonna be able to support myself? Like, am I gonna be able to move out into my own apartment? What if I wasn't with him? What, like, you know, so like I had that support. So that was always in the back of my mind. Like it was really hard in the beginning because again, I just wasn't making the money that I am now that I've gone on my own. But I will say, like I said, it was nice to have the steady job. It was like easy, and it, like I said, it was safe. But now that I'm on my own, and it's way more work, I will say. But I can't imagine my job, especially like my job part of my life. Like I can't imagine it getting better. And I almost feel like sometimes, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Like almost like something bad, like the shoe's gonna drop, like something bad's gonna happen, or like something will take it away. Like you always have that. But I can't, like everything's so good in my life right now. Like it's almost scary, like it's almost overwhelmingly scary. But I just feel even though it's like scarier, way scarier and more anxiety sometimes, it's the best feeling in the world. Like I wouldn't change it at all. And I would do it exactly the same. And that's what I tell people that are nervous about like going on their own or doing a change of career. I'm like, I always say it like this, like, okay, worst thing is you can always go back, like if you're comfortable like where you're at and you want to change it, you can always, like, I could always gone back to insurance, like I could have always, if I failed and sucked or I hated it, I went to school with so many girls that I'm still close to, but half of them don't do skincare anymore, more than half, so it's just like all like what you apply, like how much you really love it and how much you like really like take it. So like I said, the emotional part of it was, yes, it's much scarier, but I'm so much happier. If that answers your question. I'm sorry.
It does. And I feel similarly because I went from, it was this time last year, it was the end of October, and I made the jump from like agency life. And, I had like the PTO, I had the salary, all of this stuff. And then my supervisor for licensure was like, come join my practice. And she'd been recruiting me for a while. I was like, I can't, I need stability, I need safety, I need financial security. And then when COVID hit, I was like, oh fuck, all right, my priorities are different now. Like I think that really put a lot in perspective for people was when COVID hit, because I was like, this means more to me. I can't be burnt out anymore. I can't work at this job that I don't feel as appreciated. Like I want to be doing what I'm doing. And I think COVID was a really nice push to kind of make that jump.
I think COVID honestly really turned the career world like 180, because it's no longer, in my opinion, it's no longer we're at like the mercy of the employers. I feel they're at the mercy of the employees. And a lot of people during COVID decided to turn their passions, their interests into full-time jobs. And I just think there's this turn where we're realizing I'm worth more than $8-9 an hour, and I'm not going to accept less. Like I've talked with so many people that there are signs everywhere of like hiring. And it's like, yeah, because we're no longer accepting what we were before, because that's all that we could. There's been this shift. And like you said, like Shamina and you guys made that jump, it was almost like COVID pushed a lot of people to do something they probably never would have done before, but it's turned out in their favor, and it's great. And we're realizing like, hey, maybe we need to take jumps,
It's so true. It is. It's like, even though it was scary, I think it just changed everything. Even like the podcast, like podcast, like it's like, this is such a cool, like this is like the thing now, like it's, everybody wants to have a podcast, and even like via Zoom, like just meetings, like it just changed everything, and being able to communicate. Like I have friends, my closest friends all live, we all live apart. So just like even during COVID, us doing our Zoom calls like once a month, that was like the most therapeutic thing. I'm like, we never get on the phone like once a month and talk, like, why don't we do this? Why did it take COVID to like, make us do that? And even still, that's something that we try to do, even now, because it's just like, oh, it's the best. Like, it's just, it definitely made things, even though it sucked, it made a lot of like good things happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. I do have a question. Can I jump in, Shamina? Okay. So have you ever considered like expanding and like becoming more than like a one-person show? And like, what are your thoughts on that?
That's I get that question a lot too. So yeah, like ideally so my sister does hair. So she's kind of, she was doing hair before I got into aesthetics. So ideally I would like us to open up our own space and build it out the way that we want. Maybe hire, another hairstylist and then have me do the skincare and the lashes and stuff like that. And then I would hire more people. It's hard because I wish I could clone myself, like if I could clone myself, it'd be great, or just mold somebody exactly the way, that's the hardest part, I think, about like being a boss and like having a business is like one of the hardest parts is like hiring people, right? Because it's just so hard to, everybody's so different, people's personalities are so different, and then people get used to just you and they want just you for their services and stuff like that. But that's ideally, that would be the goal, is for like my sister and I to find a spot, and even right now we've kind of like looked, but with the market, it's so crazy right now, the market, it's just kind of like, we're just kind of waiting, we're not in any rush to do that. If I'm staying at the suite, because right now I'm in like a building full of suites and I have my own suite. And as long as I'm there, it'll probably just be me. I don't think I'll sublet. I don't think I'll have anybody else there on the days that I'm not there for right now. But ideally, once a few years down the road, once my sister and I hopefully open up our own spot, that's when I can start hiring people.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
My question now.
Yes.
So this is a more broad, this is going to turn it in a different direction, but I'm really interested, and I was talking to Carly about this when I was like, oh, I want to have her on as a guest, like let's kind of do this. And I really want to know kind of your thoughts on the shift in the beauty industry, because when we were younger, the thing was like, you put like all of this shit all over your face that like dries it out, and go to the tanning beds, and like we cover ourselves in makeup. And so I think particularly for women, and how the beauty industry has completely shifted, and there's such an emphasis on like wearing sunscreen. Like, yeah, that was that before, but it was like, no, like I need to get tan. I can't get tan if I wear sunscreen. And so I think I really want to know like your thoughts on that shift. And since you've experienced that, kind of being in that life when we were younger, and then now it's like, oh shit, like that wasn't great for me, and then I didn't like that.
Right. You're right. I was like perfectly in both, like I was into makeup before I got into skincare. So I like, like you said, everybody was so about being tan or just wearing a crap ton of makeup. Like even in middle school, I think it started, we were just wearing makeup and tanning and all that stuff. And nobody cared about, I don't think I ever cared about sunscreen at that age. Like, I don't think anybody did, unless you were just like super fair and you just burned. So you were always wearing sunscreen, but yeah, so you might've been, but like nobody cared.
I still wasn't, and I still wasn't. So
you're like, whatever, I'll just be a lobster.
Tanning oil, baby oil, like all of it.
I did all that stuff. Right. So, and now it's so crazy to see, even like, I talk about it like with the evolution of eyebrows, like our eyebrows, we had, it was so cool to have like no eyebrows and have those pencil thin eyebrows. And it was and I even was watching Friends the other day and I was like, oh, this is why our eyebrows looked like that. Like Monica and Rachel have just like lines for brows. And I'm like, oh my God. And now all my clients that are, 20s, like mid 20s, younger, they have beautiful brows, and like none of them have the problems that like they didn't tweeze all their brows away, because that just wasn't the thing back then. But it's amazing how much it's changed, and how much like skincare is like now the thing that girls care about. Like now it's not like, they want to be more natural, and they want to really look like, I think especially with social media, right? So like TikTok one is like a huge thing why people I think got into skincare. Like you have so many people on there and they're like, this is what I use to get my skin clear. And then people just go down this rabbit hole, right? Which is cool. And I think with filters too, like, like now I think with social media and like people that are on social media and bloggers and stuff like that, like the filters were so heavily used in the beginning. And now it's like cool to see when people don't use filters. Like now people appreciate it so much more, and they like want to see real people, and they like, they love seeing that, like the unfiltered stuff. I think they appreciate that more. So I think that's kind of also helped too with girls caring about like their skin and being less like cakey makeup and being super fake, I think that if a social media is a huge part of it, I think if we had that when we were younger, like it just educates so much. And even though sometimes it can be a little oversaturated, like I think generally it helps. Like now girls wear sunscreen, you know, there's girls that are like, oh, I wear it in my moisturizer every day. Whereas like you never, like adults I have that don't do that. So, you know, so it's amazing. It's like a good and bad thing, like just like everything, you know, like social media, it's a good and bad thing. Cause then I get a lot of clients that are super obsessed with skincare because they like are on TikTok, but they're using like 1,000 different products on their face. And I'm like, and they're like, why is my skin breaking out? I'm like, because you're using a million different things on your face. But so I do think it's gone in a better direction. I feel like we're much more conscientious, everybody, even like with our health and like what we eat and, you know, just what we put in our bodies. And, you know, I think for the most part, I feel like people are trying to be healthier, and now people do care about sunscreen. And like, you know, even you see people now like with their kids, they're putting it on them at a young age, and like our parents probably didn't do that with us, you know. So I think it's amazing, and I think that it's cool that it's less is more. I feel like with makeup, you know, even me, like this is probably the most makeup I've worn in like 2 months. So I was like, oh, I got to get ready for the podcast. Like, but normally I don't, Shamina knows what I look like normally at work. So I don't wear any makeup. But but when I was younger, I did, I care. And then I don't know what it was. Like I said, I think as I got closer to my 30s, like you just stop caring about, like, you just want to look good naturally. Like, I think you're just like, okay, I just want to be myself and not look like I have a bunch of wrinkles or like rosacea all over my face. Like I just want, or not have breakouts everywhere. So I think it's going in a good direction. For sure. It's interesting how much it's changed. Like I said, even with the fuller brows now, like it's nobody would do that to their brows, you know. I mean, hopefully, but it's very cool. And it's scary though, because you think like, okay, history repeats itself, right? So like all these trends come back in, like now bell bottoms are like a thing, and like the 90s jeans are a thing. So I'm always like, oh God, is it gonna like turn back to that? Like, is it gonna be like a thing where people are gonna like want to be tan again and have super thin brows? Like, I don't know. But I think the direction it's going, with everybody being healthier and caring more just about their overall health, including their skin, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, I keep telling my mom, and I'm gonna say it now. I tell her, wear sunscreen, and I don't think this woman listens to me. So I'm calling her out on my podcast because I don't know how many times.
This is great. That's the number one, like, honestly, if they marketed sunscreen differently, like if the companies honestly like were smarter and marketed it as like an anti-aging product, then everybody would use it, you know, like then more people would use it, because that's what it is essentially. Is it's so hard to prevent, like I tell people, it's so easy to prevent wrinkles, but it's so hard to correct them. So preventing it, that's the only way to prevent them, is with sunscreen. And you can, obviously with wrinkles and sun damage, you can correct that, but it takes time, and it takes a lot of treatments and consistency, and your home care has to be really good. So yeah, sunscreen, if it was called like the number one anti-aging product, then people could probably use it.
And I think that like for me personally, my experience with sunscreen, my concerns of why I didn't want to break out, and well, mostly I just want to break out, but what got me into it, it started a few years back, but really consistently, was like you said, wrinkles. But I used to get really bad sunspots on my forehead, and it was because I wouldn't wear sunscreen. And then I started noticing it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. So
isn't it funny how like it takes something like that, you know, because like when you're a kid, you're young, people like my mom, when I started going to the tanning beds, my mom's has beautiful skin, you know. She like, when I was younger, my mom was always in the shade under a hat, like, so she was that, I grew up with seeing her like that, you know. So when I started going to the tanning beds, my mom was like, Sabrina, you're gonna regret it, like you're not gonna, you know, you're doing so much damage to but like when you're that, you don't care, you're like, I'm gonna be young forever.
right.
And that's what I said. Like once I hit 28, I had rosacea really bad. So I had like all these broken capillaries all over my face. And it literally was just it was from me being in the tanning beds. And it just broke those blood vessels in my face and caused this like redness. Essentially, it's rosacea. And the sun makes it worse. And then of course I wasn't wearing sunscreen, and like I had no idea about any of that stuff. So when I went to school, I was like, okay, what do I do about this? Like, what product do I use for this? And I remember my teacher was like, well, that's vascular. So that's not like a topical product is not going to fix that. Like you need lasers to fix that sun damage. Like, what the fudge? I was like so mad. But at 28, 29 years old, I was getting laser while I was in skincare school. I went and found this place and I was like, I'm getting laser. But it took that, like, once you see a damage in your own skin and you're like, oh my God, I really like, aging really does happen. Like once you see it, that is what kickstarted me to like care about, like that's what made me be like, oh my God, what's wrong with my skin? And once it happens to us, I think that's what makes people like Shamina. She has such sensitive skin, right? Like her skin is so sensitive to just like nothing. And so it's like with breakouts or anything can cause like that so easily. And when you're sensitive, it sucks because you can't use anything. But I think once you start like doing stuff and seeing a difference in your skin, it makes you just like, it helps you become obsessed with it. He's like, pay attention.
Yeah, no, it sucks that you like have to learn a lesson before you actually make changes.
Yes.
But I totally agree. I think I have similar skin to Shamina of like sensitivity and it's always freaking red. And I'm just like, it is what it is, I've lived the life.
That's the problem of having fair skin too, is that you get very sensitive easily, and you definitely have to be so careful of the sun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm being better. Calling out my mom though.
Exactly. This is for you.
I think you brought up a really good point, Sabrina, is like with our access to social media, there's so much more education, because when we were younger, it was like dry out your skin. That's how you get rid of breakouts. Carly and I in high school, we used to go to like the dollar store and we bought, I don't even remember what it was called, but we bought like this little cream and it was white and you would just put it on and you would just like leave it overnight because it was going to like dry it out. And then I'm like, why does my skin look like this? And then my worst, I actually had to get on Accutane when I was in college because it was like around the time that Hurricane Irma had hit and I had no idea what had happened. Like I had always struggled with acne, but then like at that time it was like, holy shit, what's happening to my face? And, it was like, all right, let me dry it out. Let me do this. Let me do that. But then now it's like, no, like you want to moisturize your skin. You want to do this with that. You want to do that with it. And so I think we were just so misinformed when we were younger, and particularly as women, there's a completely different stigma of like what your skin needs to look like, what you need to use for it, how to get it to look this way. But now it's like, no, we've been doing everything like the opposite of what we should actually be doing and what's healthy for us.
It's so true. You're so right. I'm so glad you brought that up because like, I know like we didn't really know. I think like, I don't know like what made us choose the products back then that we did, but yeah, like St. Ives scrub, like just like, or not, like that's a big one is like, oh, I don't want to put moisturizer on my face because I'm greasy, like I'm oily. So if I put moisturizer on my face, it's going to make me more oily. And I can't tell you how often I hear clients tell me that, but they don't like, the only reason we know it's just because I studied it and I like care about, but so many people just still like think that there's certain things that they just think that are so dated. But yeah, thankfully you're right. We used to do like the Noxzema and those peel, like it was just so bad. And even like Proactive, they pushed Proactive so hard back then. And like, it's so terrible for your skin. And just, I don't know, it's wild, but thankfully you're right. It's all about like hydration. And like, now they're all about like facial oils and adding like these skincare routines. And like everybody wants to be dewy and glowy now, and nobody wants to be mattified. And, so it's funny how that changed significantly, but yeah, thank God we got a little bit smarter.
It's funny that Shamina brings that up because it just brought me back to high school. And I can remember sophomore year, my skin would be so dry, it'd be flaky, but I would refuse to put lotion on it or moisturizer because I'm like, it's going to break me out. I am not doing it. And my skin would be like flaking. But I know that cream that Shamina's talking about, I stopped using that because it would bleach my pillowcases. I'm like, if it's doing that to my pillowcases, what is it doing to me?
Yeah, literally. So
but like Shamina said, I really think that social media has shifted again in the sense of like educating us. Like obviously there are still some negatives to social media, but they're bringing the realities of like, what do you really look like without all these filters? And then like we've all discussed of educating of like, you want to moisturize your skin, you want to wear sunscreen, like moisturizing your skin can help. It's not going to always break you out if you're using the right products.
That's another one too. I'm glad you said that because I hear that so much. Is people are like, well, I don't really like to wear sunscreen because it breaks me out. And I'm like, you're just using the wrong one. I promise. It's because you're using like Neutrogena or you're using Sunbum or like you're using something like just so many good products out there now that I don't think people realize it sometimes. Like there's amazing like sunscreens out there that doesn't make you, it doesn't even feel like a sunscreen. It just feels like a moisturizer, like a moisturizer. So even like throughout the day, like people that are out in the sun all day long that have to like reapply it or they're worried about reapplying, like they have like setting sprays now that have like SPF 50 in them. They have like powders that will help like take the oil away from your face that have SPF. So there's just so many cool things now. Like you don't have an excuse now. Like now you don't have an excuse because there are quality ingredients, you know, and I'm like, there are different types of sunscreens too. That's the problem is you may have been using like a chemical based sunscreen that has like a lot of crap ingredients in it, unfortunately, and that can make you break out. So I'm very much against like a chemical sunscreen. I'm much more about like a zinc based sunscreen. It's like much safer for you. It's much healthier. And it protects you a lot better. So just like stuff like that, you just have to like make sure that you're using a quality like product and your skin, you know, and see how your skin reacts to it. But
for sure. And I had kind of thought of this earlier of like, when we were talking about how your your services that you provide for people, it's very holistic. You know, you don't just do like one thing, and you and I have talked about before how that's like really awesome from your perspective. Cause it's like, oh my God, I'm not bored every single day, like just doing facials or just doing lashes or just doing eyebrows, but also I think kind of going back to like the self-care aspect and the therapeutic kind of part of it is it's becoming so much more holistic, you know, is that we're taking care of our physical health, we're taking care of our skin and kind of the external health, if you want to kind of say it that way, and then like also our mental health. And it's shifting into this movement of we do all of that together. It's not just I need to do one of these things and then everything else will kind of follow suit.
it's so true. It's like I said, like I try not to call it like you know, like to say like, oh, you're pampering yourself, or, you know, because it's not, it's like your skin is like your largest organ, right? So it's just like working out, taking care of your body and eating right. Like when you take care of your skin and you look and you feel good and your skin feels good, it's just like exercising. It just, everything feels good, you know? And I think, like you said, everybody's much more, like I just think on like a health journey overall, you know, people care so much more about it and are really trying to like, you know, take care of themselves, self-care, you know, really do that. Cause you can't fill from an empty cup, you know, like even me, like I have to get my massages every, you know, like I don't get facials as often as I should, but like my thing is like, okay, I at least have to get a massage every month. Like that's my way of, you know, you just have to take care of yourself. So, but it's definitely more and the holistic part of it too. It's not so much like, you know, I can recommend products all day long, but you know me, I'm not one to push like I'm not like, okay, you have to buy this whole kit and this is what I want you to use. Like right. I'd rather somebody kind of try one product at a time and kind of like see how their skin acclimates to it. But to me, like facial massage, like that can do so much alone. When you just massage somebody's face and you do a lymphatic massage, for instance, like that will really help with like facial bloat and, you know, contouring the skin and pushing out the toxins out of the body. And, you know, by sweating that out and just drinking lots of water, your diet is so much of like what your skincare is, you know, it has so much to do with like what you put in your body and how much water you're drinking and, you know, just stuff like that. It's so basic. It's, you know, it doesn't have to be that complicated. And even your skincare routine doesn't have to be that complicated. I think people think, you know, and sometimes I can get crazy and use like 10 products, you know, at night, but just honestly, like when I'm trying to get people's skin just to their barrier to be healthy, like, to me, less is more, just like basic skincare routine, cleanser, toner, moisturizer, like maybe a hydrating serum in there, but, and as long as you're wearing your sunscreen, but it's like, it's not so much about like the chemicals or like pushing the products. It's just about like being healthy overall and like drinking water and eating good.
Yeah, and I think Shamina made a good point of like, it's like now we're starting to not just choose one area, but we're kind of choosing. I will say that like I think we start off with one area, but then it we get into like, oh, we're focusing on our skincare, like self-care. Now I'm gonna push towards, physical care and then mental health. So I think that, and I think that shift kind of happened with COVID as well, of like, we had to find ways because our old outlets of, doing what we needed to do weren't working. We couldn't go to concerts. We couldn't go out to eat. So we had to like focus on us. Personally, I feel like the pandemic really made us kind of see our true like selves, our flaws, and be like, oh my God, I need to work on this, or, whatever.
Yeah. And like, not to call it like being like selfish, but like almost, yeah, like we just kind of like care more about like, okay, like what do I need to take care of me? Or like, what do I need to, because it's true. I think you're right. I don't think it would have been like the way it is right now if it hadn't been for COVID and just people kind of like putting it into perspective. And yeah, I think just realizing like, okay, it's not about like just going to work and making like, it's about like me taking care of myself and my family and like being there and, just feeling good. Like, so I think you're right. I think like, I think that COVID, it changed everything. I think everybody just wanted to take care of themselves better. I know that's what it was for me, like just with work, I think everybody just like gained weight during COVID or like, everybody was just like, people were fighting more. You're like, it was a lot. So I think it did. I think a lot, it kicked so many people in the butt in that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you have any more questions, Carly?
I don't have questions, but I was gonna say something that I now don't remember, so never mind.
It'll come back to it.
I was like going to say it, and then Shamina said like, so do you have any questions? And I was like, nope.
It went out of my mind.
Yeah, it was something about what we were literally just talking about, like with COVID and everything, and now, oh, there it goes. I was just gonna make a remark of like, I feel like we, like you said, like we started focusing on ourselves because we realized we didn't want to be burnt out anymore. Like you were saying, like, but pre-COVID, it was working and just like doing what you had to do. But I don't think people realized how burnt out they were until COVID hit. And then it was like, oh my God, I feel like I was just like in a routine, and then it got shifted, and now I'm noticing all of these things coming to light, and I need to put me first. And so I think maybe that's what also pushed this, like, caring for your skin, your mental health, your physical health.
Yeah. And even like I don't have kids, but I can't imagine, having kids, like you having, like, how do you can't take care of somebody else if you don't take care of you, I feel like, so like, or if you do, you're just running on E, and then you're just not, you just don't feel good. But yeah, I definitely think it was needed. And I think that like everybody being close with I think it like brought people closer to their families and stuff too. And it just like made people realize what's really important,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, it forced us to pause because we won't choose to pause ourselves. And so it was like the universe is like, here you go. You need to do this now. And so, now we're having this huge shift in all different industries and areas of life, basically. And we finally had the time to slow down. Granted, we were forced to do that, and there are negative and positive outcomes that have come because of it. But it really, I think, put so much in perspective. And I've seen such a huge kind of increase in the self-care. It's either goes like one way or the other. It's like there's none anymore because of the mental health being so impacted, feeling the isolation, or it's going in the opposite direction of I'm feeling really empowered. I need to start taking care of myself. I can't keep doing this. This isn't sustainable. I need to do something different. And so now we're seeing kind of this upward shift as well. And it's pretty cool to see.
It is cool. And even just like, for like, I think even with like girls doing their nails, you know, like just something simple like that. Like all of a sudden girls started doing their nails at home and like started getting like really creative and like doing all this, like, they're like, you know what, I can see, and like getting really good at it. Like, they're like, I could do my own gel manicures and like saving money. Or even like when guys like couldn't get, like when nobody could get haircuts, like for a girl that's not really a big deal, but for like a guy, like you don't realize how big of a deal it is. Like, so Travis, you know, like so I started cutting Travis's hair at home, and like that was just like fun for us, and that was just like a fun way for us to bond. Like, you know, it was like like we laugh about it now, but it brought us like so much closer, and just like stuff like that. But yeah, I just feel like people got way more creative and way more resourceful. And I think it was like, it's funny, like how you said, Shamina, like it was literally like the universe made us do that. It was almost like it was like a sign, you know, like a sign, like it just made us, it forced everybody to do that. Like nobody was eliminated from that. You know, we all had to like suffer through that somehow.
Yes.
Definitely. Any other thoughts? I didn't want to speak. And then thoughts, so I was like,
she was like,
I
don't know how you guys do it, man. I would be talking about a million different things. I don't know how you guys stay on topic.
Keep her on track. She'll go everywhere. So I'm like, this is the direction.
So would I. No, you're good.
Yeah,
you're good.
Definitely. I feel like I could talk about a million things in one conversation, but I really try to stay focused, especially when we have a guest, because I'm like, all right, I can't be jumping around everywhere, but I could. So if you ever want to talk about anything, hit me up.
Yeah. No, it's true. I'm sure like when it's just you two, I wanted to ask you guys that. Like, okay, so I have a question for you guys. Do you still get, like, you guys have been doing a lot of episodes now. So like, I'm sure in the beginning you guys always got nervous, right? Like, did you always get nervous filming, or do you still feel like nerves filming now? Or like, only if you have a guest? Is it like, I'm assuming it's way more like chill, like if it's just you two, right? Like when you don't have a guest, like, I don't know, like to me, I was like, man, I'm sweating bullets. I was like, I don't know how I do this. I don't know how they do this all the time. Like, and it's easy because it's on Zoom too, but like, do you guys get nervous at all, or did you in the beginning?
I'll go first and then I'll let Shamina go. So I think for me, like, I think maybe the first episode I got pretty nervous, but now I just love to talk, and I'm a very curious person naturally. So even when we have a guest, I'm like, let's go. I will say I probably was a little more nervous when we would talk about, like, in the very beginning, when it was like me going through the breakup and stuff, because I was still very emotional. So I know sometimes when we would talk about certain things, sometimes when we talk about certain things, I'd be like, oh, fudge nuts, I'm crying. And so I know there's one episode specifically, Shamina said something and I was like crying, and she's just staring at me, and I'm like, can you take over? Like,
that's the therapist in her, that she's just letting you get it out.
I know. I was literally like bawling. I'm like, I need to take a minute. Can you take over? Like, girl, like, but
yeah, I love that it's like real raw, you know.
Oh yeah, but I don't get nervous. I get excited.
That's so cool. What about you, Shamina? I feel like you're so cool and calm.
And in the beginning, because we didn't do it like for the first half of the first season, we didn't do anything on YouTube. So we weren't like filming ourselves. So we were just together talking and recording it. Okay. And then when we started doing this, I do this full time for work because I talk to people via telehealth for work. So this is very normal to me. Or even if we have guests that I've never met before that Carly brings in, I'm like, okay, I do this all the time. I get to know new people. Like, it's fine. So I don't really get nervous. I think along with Carly, like some of the episodes where I self-disclose a lot more instead of like keeping it on the surface, I get a little nervous about that. And like who's going to hear it, or what's the reaction going to kind of be, sort of thing. But I don't really get nervous. And I get that a lot. Everybody's like, Shamina, you have such a like calming energy. And I'm just like, whatever, I'm here. I showed up.
You do.
So
that's no, that was another thing too, is like, I think like, oh, I wonder if they get nervous about like certain people listening, or like, you know, like, I mean, I'm sure, like you said, it's hard to share some stuff over other stuff, but like that also must be, to me, I feel like so therapeutic, like, and especially just to get to talk to somebody that you're so close with, and just to like make it like, but it's like comes so natural, and the fact that you guys can have a podcast out of that, you know, like is so cool. I think that's so
I think that I'm like an open book. Like Shamina knows I'm down to talk about whatever, but I think then there are certain things that I'll talk about, but afterwards I might be like, oh my gosh, Shamina, like, especially in the beginning, I know like before we posted the first episode, I was like, Shamina, I don't know if we should do it. I think maybe I said too much. Like I just what you know? Yeah. And so she was like, no, I probably listened to our first episode like 4 times just so I was like, okay, no, I didn't say anything nasty. I was pretty like balanced, but that first episode, I was like, oh my God.
That was probably the hardest one for you, huh? That was probably the hardest one.
Yeah, because I was still like raw, like I was hurt, man. And I just went in, but I didn't lie. I did not lie.
Bitter.
Putting that on record.
I think it like makes it good because we had these conversations like before we started the podcast, and then it was just like, well, fuck it, like let's record ourselves just having these conversations. And I know for me, because there is a level of like professionalism that I still have to keep, because I know that my clients listen to the podcast. So like shout out to all my clients who listen to the podcast. I see, right. I don't see you, but you see me. Right. And I think it's been really helpful for them, because some of the topics that we talk about, you know, it really aligns with what we'll talk about in session with them. And it's not, I never like promote it like, oh my God, this is my podcast, you need to listen to it. If it's clinically appropriate, I'll bring it up. And then they're like, oh my God, this is really great. Or they really like just listening to me talk. They're like, I feel like I'm in session with you again, and I have that contact with you. And so I think it's really comforting for a lot of them. And that's some of the feedback that I've gotten, which is really great, as using like a therapeutic tool. And, you know, we'll have somebody like talk about something. There was one we were talking about like imposter syndrome, and I was like, funny you should say that. We're actually doing a podcast episode about that. So check it out if it would be helpful. And then they're all like, oh my God, you have a podcast? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, cool. So I think it's been really cool just to kind of see that level of like professional growth from me as a therapist, because it's different. And even in the beginning, Carly and I went back and forth of like, what's my role going to be? Because it's like, okay, I know that my clients will have access to this. Like it's public. So I can't control who knows that. And so at first I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to be really clinical. And then I was like, but maybe I'll say a little bit. And now, you know, I'm starting to get more comfortable self-disclosing, because I know that what I have to say is important and other people can connect to it as well. Like the domestic violence episode that we had just released recently, like that was very near and dear to me. And it was like, I want to communicate that to people. So it's kind of a fine line of like, where do I draw that professionalism and limiting how much information I can give to like potential clients or even current clients without it like impacting the therapeutic relationship.
Well, you did great. You did great.
I will say I want Shamina to give all the lowdown on her life, but
me too.
I have to respect her decision. But I will say, like with Shamina, like what she was saying of like us having that discussion, I know in the very beginning she was like, no, I'm just going to be the clinical like aspect to it. And then I think after that first episode, she was like, no, I'm interested a little bit. And then I think slowly, and I'm just trying, like, sometimes I'll try to ask her questions because I'm like, come on, give me the tea. Like, I know people want to know your life as much as they know mine, because obviously I'm an open book, but true. I also try to hold back, but I'm just like, give it to us.
I know. It's funny how you are like, but I have so much to say. And Shamina's like, well, I'm just going to keep it really,
She has things to say. She just says it to me off camera.
Right. But it's true though, Shamina, like it's true. Like that episode, I was listening to that episode and I was like, oh, I was even telling my fiance about it. I was like, oh man, I wish I could have been on this episode. Cause like I think people can, like so many people relate to that, topic. And, but it does, like, it made me feel like just closer to you. And like, like it just makes me want to know more about you. And it just makes people have like this connection. But like, yeah, I think like Carly said, like, I think both of you being equally like in it, how you have been, like, is so good. Cause yeah, everybody loves to see that. I mean, I love it. So
Maybe we'll get some more from her with this feedback.
yeah.
I'm an enigma. I'm an enigma that nobody really.
You don't see me.
Yeah.
No, but it was great. It was great. It was really good.
Thank you.
And if you ever want to be on an episode,
yeah, like I wasn't sure, like, because like I mean I noticed like you said, like all the topics are, like we did you guys domestic violence and the imposter syndrome, and it's like, emotionful topics, like very. So I honestly, like, I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, I don't know if we're gonna be just talking about like assuming I knew we weren't going to have a specific topic like that, because I assumed Shamina would have like told me, but you guys just let me know, man. If I know what the topic is, I am more than willing.
I think I just had thought of this because we had another episode with a guest, and I think one day I want to get to a place where we do like a panel discussion and, just kind of have like one specific topic, and then we just go off of that. And I think that would be a super cool way to like expand and, having more of a group. We kind of do that with like our group episodes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, and no, it's fun. I honestly love stuff like this. Like, I was nervous, but to me, like, look, it's 8:08 and it flew by. Like, I feel like I've been here for 10 minutes. I just, it's like addicting, these things, it's like addicting. And then I'm sure you guys do it all the time where you're like going about your life and you're like, oh, that's great for the podcast. Like, I need to like mental note that,
Samina is like, I'm kind of just floating in the wind sometimes, but Shamina will like call me and be like, hey, I saw this person and I reached out to them and I think that they would be great for the podcast. And then I'm like,
love her.
Let me get on that too. So she's always on her mind of like, oh, you'd be good.
But Shamina, you mentioned like you're so not pushy about the podcast either. Like, you're not, like, I knew about the podcast and I had been following you guys, but like even when I'm with you, like, she's not like, oh, you need to listen to our podcast. Like, like, she's so not like that. And it's just like, it just makes it like, when people are pushy like that, it kind of turns you off, one. But like, now that I totally lost my train of thought, but it's like I forget what I'm saying as I'm saying it. No, but I know, but like, she isn't pushy at all. And she's also, but she's like she makes it so easy, like so effortless, like even asking me to be a part of the podcast. Like, I'd probably be so nervous about something like that, like, or like think too much about asking somebody to be a part of the podcast. Like, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Like, but she was like, hey, I was just thinking, like, we were talking so casually, and she was like, yeah, now that you mention it, I was thinking we should have you on our show. And it was so like, I was like, oh yeah, no problem. But like, it was so easy the way she did it, like it wasn't even a thought to her. Like, to me, I would make so much out of that, like having to ask people to be on the podcast. I would make it such a big deal.
Yeah, no, she definitely makes it easy. She's my one that I go to and then I cry. And I'm like, I didn't even know I was going to cry. Or like, we'll just start talking and then I just like go on and then I was like, oh, I guess I just needed to vent. Didn't realize it, but you just make it so easy that I feel comfortable enough to do it. So you're welcome. Like,
give me my money.
That money. Well, I thought it was so funny. I'm assuming it was like, I forget which episode I was listening of you guys too. I think it was like getting to know, like us knowing your story and stuff. And Shamina was like, well, Carly said that she wanted to start a podcast and she didn't even ask me to be a part of it. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. Like, how sweet. But like, to me, because you're, like you said, this was come so naturally to you though too, because you do this like just one-on-one with strangers or like just clients all the time. So to you, this must be like, this is easy. Like, I can do this,
Yeah.
I would think the hardest part for Shamina, I mean, you can tell me yes or no, is having that boundary of what to say and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part because like Carly said, like I would love to just be like free range and say whatever I want, but I know Carly said, bitch, please, please, please.
You
But
gotta
like
have the
I
professional.
yes, I know who like listens and like when I'm in session with some of my clients, like they're like, oh, I listened to that episode and this and that, so I know that they're listening and that is really hard because I'd love to be like super transparent, but also as a therapist, you don't share your whole life. Like that's not the role. That's not my responsibility. Is like, here, you get to know me as much as I get to know you. That's unethical. And so I'm trying to like do that fine line. But even my clients are like, I know, I see you, like you're very good at that, like that professionalism. Like they'll learn something and they're like, I didn't even know that about you. Like that's very interesting. And so I think that is definitely the hardest part. And I think my clients, so shout out to my clients this episode because y'all are awesome. And I tell you guys this all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I get a lot of inspiration like when I'm in therapy session because it's like this is a really prevalent topic, but we don't normalize this enough or we don't talk about this enough. So then I'll call Carly. I was like, we need to talk about this. Like this was something that, I was thinking about like while I was in session or what have you. And she's like, yeah. And so a lot of my like inspiration for some of the topics that we discuss comes from my clients because it's so prevalent and I see it happening time and time again. Each session that I'm in, I'm like, why aren't we talking about this more? Or this needs to be normalized or validated. And so you're a real MVP.
Oh, it's so true. It's like, even with, like even Shamina and I were talking about it too, when I last saw you, like with just the whole Gabby Petito case, I think everybody, it just like, like so many people found like wanted to dig so deep into this. And I think a huge reason, one, I think social media obviously helped kind of like catapult that, but I feel like so many people read like who have been in like domestic violence or have seen that, like I think just felt so like strongly about like what was going on with that whole thing. And then people just kind of like, did this like deep dive into it and like brought people together, so it's so crazy how like those topics, it can bring people like, so many people suffer from, and I just don't think people realize it. And it just needs to be normal to like talk about that stuff so openly.
Yeah.
I think, honestly though, the whole point of this podcast, like Shamina was saying, is like, we were having these conversations and then we're like, why don't we just record it? But it's because things that me and her are going through or like people we know, it's like, okay, not many people really want to talk about it and like air it because it's normally tougher situations and experiences, but everyone's going through it. So why not like be the ones to catapult and be like, hey, it's okay to talk about this. And then obviously like, I think talking about it helps you get through it quicker, or like helps that healing process. But it's funny because now as like I'm personally transitioning into like different phases of life, Shamina's like, I'll tell her like my stories and she's like, we should talk about this on the podcast. And I'm like, okay.
I don't know if I'm ready for that. No, I'm like you. I'm like an open book, man. Like Shamina, I would be terrible at your job because I would be like, well, listen to what happened to me one time, like I'd be like, my trauma needs to be heard, like I'm like too much. Like I spew at the mouth. Like I say too much. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I just like, I'm too emotional. I need to like reel it in.
It's a fine-tuned skill because they talk a lot in like graduate school about like self-disclosure and you're not supposed to do it and it, can set you up for lawsuits and all this stuff. But I emphasize to my clients a lot that it builds empathy because there will be times where like in session I will self-disclose and it's like I can understand what you're going through because I've been through something similarly, or using that as a therapeutic tool. And I think that's really important as my role as a therapist and the way that I function. Not a lot of people may have that type of mentality, but I think my supervisor was really great in that because she was like, what is your intention behind that? And making sure you tie it back to the client. It's not like, oh, it's the Shamina show, you're just going to hear about
right.
me. That never happens. It's like, this is relevant and how do I tie that back to you? So I think that practice in therapy, like in my sessions with clients, has helped with a podcast because it's like, I know where that fine line is. I do that shit every day.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, because that would be the hardest part, like, to me, but that is so amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah. I'm you, and then Shamina reels me in because I could go on a whole tangent and be like, well, I did this today. And Shamina like, we're not even talking about that. And I'm like, oh, I thought you guys just wanted to know.
And then it's like at the hour, I'm like, all right, we gotta wrap up. Like every hour I have a new client. Like, come on, let's go. I gotta go to
That's what you
do this, I gotta
need.
do that.
That's why you guys are so good though for each other, you know, like that you guys like both need a little bit of each other, you know, like you guys, that's why it's like perfect, you know, she needs like the structure and then you need to be more open, like, and like let it out, you know, and be more free. Like it's great that you guys both have it and complement each other perfectly.
Well, thank you. We appreciate, yeah.
But we want to thank you, Sabrina, for coming on and joining us in this discussion today. We usually have a topic and then we just kind of branch off, as you kind of saw today. So we welcome you back anytime as a guest, or if there's anything you're like, I'm really fired up about this, let's talk about it. Let's do the damn thing.
Yes, I would love to. This has been like amazing. Like I said, it went by in a flash. Like I had so much fun with you guys. I'm so thankful that you guys had me on. And like I said, like Shamina, I'll reach back out to you too, and then you can send me an address so I can send you guys some goodies. And then Carly, I will get in touch with you. We can get you on my schedule.
Yeah, girl, I'll message you on Instagram. Let me know.
That's the best way, honestly. Just message me on Instagram, and then I'll even if it like goes through my request, like I'll see that right away, and I'll get you hooked up. But thank you.
For all of our viewers or listeners, if they want to check out your business or learn more about you, where can they go?
Thank you. So my website is facetime-beauty.com. So from there you can see like a list of all my services and the costs, and if you want to book directly from there. And where most people find me is my Instagram. You can see all my work and message me or call me directly through there, or also book it through there. And my Instagram is Sabrina_FaceTime Beauty.
Perfect. And we will make sure we'll promote that when we air this episode as well. So that will be on there too.
Thank you. Yes, I can't wait to share it.
Yes, thank you so much for being on. This was a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So nice to meet you, Carly. Thank you.
You too. Yes.
Bye, Sabrina. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
You're trying to trick our guests into guilt tripping me to talk more about myself. I see you, you manipulative little person, you.
You do what you gotta do, baby.
So, are you feeling full yet?
Are you?
Are you?
I have a good question actually this time. How do you feel that society has shifted, encouraged, influenced beauty or anything really since kind of like TikTok, Instagram has become a big thing? What are your thoughts?
Let us know. Comment below or DM us on the gram at EmotionfulPod, or like our Facebook page. And what do you do on Facebook? Message us, comment. I don't know, whatever you do on
message, you comment, you like, you share.
Yes, share. Our Facebook page is Emotionful Podcast. So check us out, like and subscribe to the video below. And stay tuned, same time, same place next week for more emotionally full episodes.
Emotionally full conversations.
Discussions.
Okay, Shamina. No, I'm kidding.
Bye.
Bye.